So you just got home, you've had a brilliant day shooting, and you've done everything you possibly can to get every shot that you think you need. You get home, you're reviewing it on your editor, you have a look back at all the clips, all the dailies, and some of it is just a little bit too shaky. Damn it. What's happening, guys? Dan Debenham here. We're looking today at how to stabilise footage from within your editor, in specifically the editor I use, which is Premiere Pro. And there are a number of different ways of stabilising footage through the Adobe suite. So you've got Premiere Pro, you've got After Effects, they both do some stabilisation. And we're going to look at how you do that in both of those two programs. So we've got a clip that's a little bit shaky, and we're going to try and stabilise it in Premiere Pro first, and then once we've stabilised it in Premiere Pro, we'll do the same thing again in After Effects, and we'll have a look and see how that actually works. So let's get a look in Premiere Pro and see how we go about doing it. Okay, so now that we're in Premiere Pro, what we can do is we can select our clip. So we've got our clip here. I'm just going to play through this little clip and see what it looks like. So as we can see, it's not particularly stable, it's fairly rocky. It's sort of a dolly shot, but it's kind of like needs a bit of stabilisation to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our clip, then we're going to come over here, we're going to go to Effects, we're going to type in Warp, and that just brings up the options for anything that's got warp in it. For our sake, we're going to use Warp Stabiliser. So what we're going to do now is drag that and drop it on there, and as you can see, it's going to analyse that clip and then it's going to stabilise that clip. Now if we go up to Effects Controls, what we can see here is we can see how long it's going to take to do it. So it's going to take 2 minutes to do it, and it gives you a percentage of how far through, along with the number of frames that there are and the number of frames that it's actually already stabilised. And basically we just sit and we wait, and then we can see how well it's done. For us, we're going to leave all these settings exactly the same. So the smooth motion, everything else, we're going to just leave absolutely as it was. Smoothness is 50% because we don't want to go too crazy with it. It's all about small minor adjustments. In this case, the general settings for Warp Stabiliser are good enough for what we want to do. So as you can see now, it's stabilising it, and then once it's stabilised, it then set, and we can then sort of just give it a bit of a play through and see how that has worked. So we can see that from the original clip, it is now a lot more stable. There is still some camera movement there, but it's not anywhere near as shaky as it was before. In effect, it is stabilised. Not bad actually, it's not done a bad job at that. As I say, as an editor and a filmmaker, there is always more than one way to cook this turkey, and basically we can have a look at After Effects and see how they do that in there. In essence, After Effects, you can use Warp Stabiliser as you can in Adobe Premiere, but there are also several other options that allow you to sort of fine-tune that sort of stabilisation effect. So let's have a look at Adobe After Effects and let's see how we do it in there. So in After Effects, we've got our clip set in place, and we've got a composition made, so we're all ready and we're raring to go. So first things first, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we've got our clip selected. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Tracker on the right hand side. If you don't see Tracker on the right hand side, then go up to Window, down to Tracker, and select Tracker, and it will then appear where you need it to be. So we've got that all sorted. We've got a couple of options because we've selected our clip, those have highlighted up. So we've got Track Camera, Warp Stabiliser, which we used in Premiere Pro, Track Motion, and Stabilise Motion. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Stabilise Motion. So we're going to click Stabilise Motion, and that option is then going to bring in certain settings for us. So the first setting is motion source, so we need to make sure that our video is a motion source was selected. So that's this video here, whatever video it is you've got in that you're wanting to track, that needs to be the name of that video. Tracker 1, we're going to leave that as it is, and then track type, we've got options down here, we've got raw, perspective, corner pin, parallel corner pin, transform and stabilize. We're just wanting to use stabilize. We're wanting to stabilize the position, so we're going to leave that selected, but rotation and scale we're going to leave unselected. End, target and options, we're going to leave those as is, and then we've got some options down here. Firstly, before we do anything else, we need to select a high contrast area on our video in order to allow After Effects to get the best tracking data it can. And we'd use this tracking point, which has appeared in the middle of the screen, to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this tracking point, if I can. I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller so I can get hold of it. And I'm going to move that about so I can see it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to find a high contrast area, so something like this black, somewhere over here, somewhere here, that we know we want it to track. So for me, I'm going to do the center of this thing here. I'm just going to put it there. I'm going to alter this so that it is definitely in the center. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so I can show you what it is that we're actually doing. So let's zoom in by 200%. So you can see you've got two boxes. You've got an inside box and an outside box. And what the inside box is basically that is the points that the After Effects is going to try and track, and the outside box is effectively the sort of buffer zone, if you will, that allows it to say, well, actually I want to be a bit further this way, or I want to be a bit further that way. So let's just get that set right. Let's just move this into position. You can move these two separately if you want to, so you can see they can be moved separately. We'll just zoom in a little bit more. You can see I can shift them about separately if I want to, and I can just give it as many points as I can possibly make it, just to make sure that it's definitely going to get as much tracking data as possible. So once I've done that, the playhead is at the beginning. You can have it at the end, but you can do it at the beginning. We're then going to come down here, we're going to leave these two options, and then we've got analyze one frame backwards, analyze backwards, analyze forwards, and analyze one frame forward. Now we're going to use analyze forward because my playhead is at the beginning. So I'm going to click start on that, and as you can see, it's started to do everything it needs to do. It's collecting all the data. Keep your eye on this, and you make sure it's not jumping about all over the place. It needs to stay on that point as much as it possibly can in order to get the best possible results for you. So we're just going to make sure, I'm going to monitor and make sure it does do that all the way through. It looks to be like it was a good place that we picked. If you have a problem with that, you can always stop it and then readjust to a different point and then restart it again, and it will just track on from the beginning at a different point. But in this case, we've done a good job. So I can just sort of scrub through, and I can see it's moved about a little bit, and that is because the image is moving about, which seems to have stuck straight to the point where I want it to be, which is fantastic. So we'll click apply then, and we get a pop-up box. The pop-up box is basically what we want to track. What options do we want to apply to that? So we've got X and Y, X only or Y only. Well, we're going to go X and Y because we want both those two dimensions to be able to track. So we'll click OK on that, and then as you can see, it's put in a load of keyframes and a load of tracking system information in there, and attachment points and what have you. And that is basically to allow it to know exactly where to move the whole frame. Because as I say, it will crop in your image a little bit, and that is because it's going to move this entire frame around in order to keep it sort of in the middle. Now, as we scroll through, as you can see, I did say it was going to move things about, and you can see those black bars appeared at the back, at the side here, and it's because it's moving around, it's moving the image around all the time in order to try and keep it as best as it possibly can, and try and keep it absolutely in the middle. So in order to sort that out, what we're going to do is we're going to find a place where the black bars are roughly the most, and then, which is around about there. I'm going to move all this up, so I'm going to close these up. I'm going to go to transform, scale, and then I'm going to just zoom it in, and I reckon about maybe 110, so just to keep it round figures, 110. And then what we'll do is we'll scrub through as we do, just to see how it's done, make sure that it's not got anything anywhere. Okay, so let's see if we can play this. And we can see that from that playing it, it is a lot more stable than it was before. This is sort of staying in the center as much as it possibly can, but there are other things we can do to it. So let's just let's stop that from playing,
Okay, so we're going to do something different now. What we're going to do is we're going to try and do a little bit more to it. So I'm going to go and right click on it, I'm going to go pre-compose, and I'm going to move all attributes into the new composition. Then what we're going to do is with this clip selected, as you can see it's got the little handles, we're going to go back to stabilize motion, click on rotation, uncheck position, which gives us 2 track points. We're then going to move our track points to a position that is going to give us a decent look of the rotation, so I'm going to put that one there, and then on this one I'm going to put that possibly there, like so, and then I'm going to click play forward again. I'm going to let it track its business again. Again, we're monitoring to make sure these don't move too far away. There is also the possibility that because it's dealing with rotation, it might skew the clip out completely, and that will take a little bit more work to put right. But we're going to give it a go and see what it is going to come out like. Effectively, we've already got a clip we're happy with, but we're just trying to add a little bit more to it. And this is part of the stabilization process, is in essence sort of trialing it out to see if you can get better options. It looks like it's not moved too massively. It's done a fairly decent job, so let's click apply on it and see what happens with it. It's moved it slightly, you can see you've got little bits here and there. So what we'll do is we'll just collapse these trackers down and we'll go to the scale again, and we'll just zoom in slightly, and we'll just rotate through the timeline just to make sure that it doesn't do anything too crazy. Okay. And let's have a look and see what that looks like.
So as you can see, these are pretty simple and pretty easy methods to use. Most of it is automated. There is some fine tuning and fine tweaking if you want to get absolutely stellar results to your final stabilized footage, and it is useful because not everybody has the access to a gimbal or a glide cam or a slider or something that allows you to get a great shot. There are guerrilla ways of doing it, obviously. I mean, we've used skateboards before in shoots I've had. We've used trolleys, sack barrow trolleys with a cameraman on, so that you can get a push back and forth, which is pretty stable. And there are all sorts of other ways of doing it, but not everybody has access to that. And if you're just handheld and you thought it was all right, but you've got a bit of shaky hand syndrome going off, you can use one of these programs, one of your editing programs or your VFX program, to sort of at least give you a short stabilized shot. I personally wouldn't use stabilize on a long form project, so if it was a really long shot, I wouldn't stabilize the whole thing, because I think you can tell that it's been stabilized in post. If I was going to do that whole thing as one shot handheld, I would probably use some kind of thing to stabilize the camera, be that a tripod or a gimbal of some kind. But other than that, they are very, very useful, and they do their job perfectly. And hope this was useful for you. At least you've got something in your bag that you can pull out if need be, if you're in a bind, and you can use it whenever you like. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.